At Central Christian Church, we are growing together in our understanding and our faith. We are touching lives with the love of Christ, and we are sharing our gifts within and beyond our congregation. We are glad to share our Sunday morning messages with you. We hope you will hear a word of comfort and encouragement for your life. May God bless you and grant you peace and joy.
This past week was Valentine's Day. Did you get to celebrate it? I hope you, if you did, you got to celebrate it well. I want to share with you a couple Valentines from children that I found online this week. This one says, "Thank you, Mom, for making me food so I don't die." Right to the point. I like this one. It's a little hard for you to see if you have the Star Wars saga in your mind. My second Valentine is for Miss Johnson. She is a great teacher. She is not on the Jedi Council, but is great with the Force. And then finally, this one, very practical too. Mom and Dad, you are lucky you are alive. I love you very much. Happy Valentine's Day. Thought that one was cute too. You are lucky you are alive. Valentine's Day. Oh, that day with roses and chocolates and candlelight dinners and Hallmark greeting cards. You know they started the whole Valentine rush stuff, right? It's a day filled with romance. Or maybe you know it as Singles Awareness Day, as it's now also called, for those who are not in some romantic relationship and feel left out in the Valentine's rush. And I'm glad that there is a Singles Awareness Day and people are able to get together and be together as friends and in relationships. But what I wonder is, do you know where Valentine's Day came from? Do you know the origins of Valentine's Day? I see hands raising in the sanctuary. People have been, you've probably learned some of this. Let's see if it matches what you learned at school or what you learned in your studies at home. So Valentine's Day, we believe one of the origins comes from ancient Rome. Ancient Rome, where men would hit on women. Well, by hitting them. Where men would hit on women by hitting them. From February 13th to the 15th, the Romans celebrated the feast of Lupercalia. The men sacrificed a goat and a dog and then whipped women with the hides of the animals they had just slain. All of you ladies out there saying, glad that changed. The Roman Romantics, according to one scholar, Noel Linsky of the University of Colorado at Boulder, were often under the influence of a lot of wine. They were often unclothed. And young women would actually line up for the men to whip them with these hides from the animals they had just slain because they believed that this would make them fertile. This would make them fertile, able to bear children. And if you lived in this ancient world where if you did not have a male heir in your life as a woman, once your husband died, because we know that women often outlive men, and by the way, guys, it's just because they're smarter. It's just the truth. They're more intelligent. But in that ancient world, they had no clue how fertility really happened. They did not know how the birth of a child happened. We're not going to go through all those stages here this morning, which I'm sure you're grateful for. I'm going, pushing the wrong button. So, this brutal feat included a matchmaking lottery. So after you drank a lot of wine, you took off all your clothes, and you sacrificed a goat and a dog, and you ran around with young men, then in this lottery drew names from a jar of women. The couple would then be, well, coupled up for the duration of the festival, or longer if the match was right. This is the origin of Valentine's Day, folks. A pagan holiday that took place just before the spring of the year hit, when all of the animals would give birth, when new life was springing forth. It was a pagan festival of fertility and growth. The ancient Romans may also be responsible for the name of our modern day of love. According to the professor, Emperor Claudius II executed 2 men around that day on February 14th, both of them named Valentine. And so the martyrdom of these 2 Christian men was honored by the Catholic Church with the celebration of St. Valentine's Day. And later, Pope Gelasius, who you see there on the right, muddled things in the 5th century by combining St. Valentine's Day with Lupercalia to expel the pagan rituals. Hopefully many of you know by now that most of the religious holidays that we observe were once pagan festivals that the church took over and renamed and recast as Christian festivals to eliminate the pagan holidays. It's where Halloween comes from and All Saints' Day. It's how Christmas got its origin where it is. It's Valentine's Day. It's how Easter is played out where it is, and other holidays throughout the year. If you don't know that, the library is a great source to go and learn how the pagan holidays have become Christian festivals through the years. Now, of course, Valentine's Day changed quite a bit through the centuries, especially after the Shakespearean period of history. That's when chocolates and flowers became more the gifts than rawhides, if you will. Well, speaking of popes, I already gave you a little glimpse, but Pope Benedict XVI resigned this past week. Did you catch that big news item? Citing his advanced age and his inability to lead the billion-plus member Catholic Church in this fast-paced, changing world, where the growth of Christianity, and especially the Catholic Church, is multicultural now, happening more south of the equator than north of the equator, and where cultural changes in North America and Europe challenge the validity and the relevancy of the church. Among the major issues that the Pope is facing in the Catholic Church and all churches were the issue of women clergy and priests in Catholicism. You see, there's a shortage of male priests in the culture now that no longer accepts the submissive role of women. A culture that now equates persons by gender, which is in line with the teachings of Jesus Christ, by the way. We no longer see women as a subservient role to men in most of our cultures. We no longer view women as second-class citizens in our culture. And so there is a charge against the Roman Catholic Church of why can't women be full priests in the church? And he's facing, or he was facing, that issue right away because of the shortage of male priests in the Catholic Church and needing the priest to be able to serve all over the world. Also, the issue of women's reproductive rights facing the church. Women leaving the church in high numbers throughout the developed world, unable to relate to the old male-dominated worldviews of the church. But you know, most of you are familiar with this old gospel song. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me. Not bad impromptu. I asked you to do that pretty quick. Well, while some old-time religion is good and noble, some old-time religion is neither good or noble. Old-time religion gave us the Crusades of 1,000 years ago and the Inquisition of 500 years ago. It gave us the Nazi Holocaust of the Jews and others of 60 years ago, and various religious wars in between. Old-time religion oppressed women. Last Friday was the birthday of Susan B. Anthony. You all know Susan B., right? Not just because she's on a coin, but you know her because she led the women's suffrage movement, began the movement that awarded women the right to vote in our country just under 100 years ago. just under 100 years ago. The 19th Amendment, which was ratified in 1920, I believe it was, means that some of you were almost born at that time when that amendment was ratified. It's that new in our culture. From a few verses in the Bible, women were said to be subject to their husbands or kept silent in the church and kept from serving in leadership roles in the church because of old-time religion. We understand the value of personhood today. Not male over female, but one humanity in Jesus Christ. One humanity as children of God, equal partners in relationships with equal authority in parenting and all other decisions. All other decisions. Those same few types of verses were the verses that defended slavery in our country and still defend slavery around the world. I believe that most of us would reject slavery in this room. Most of us would say that that should be discarded. That should not be practiced anymore. But it still is, and those same kinds of few Bible verses or old cultural attitudes still fuel slavery in our midst. Old-time religion stifled scientific inquiry. Friday was also the birthday of Galileo Galilei, who was excommunicated by the church during the Inquisitions of the 16th and 17th centuries for claiming with audacity that the earth was not the center of the universe, but that in fact, instead of the sun going around the earth was going around the sun. And the church fathers of the day said this is going to disrupt too much of our belief and excommunicated Galileo for that discovery. Galileo, the father of modern science, Galileo, the inventor of the telescope, able to see out into space for the first time in human history. The fact is, some old-time religion is unhealthy, and some should be discarded. Some old-time religion is unhealthy, and some should be discarded. Even Jesus didn't like some of the old-time religion of his day. Just before the teaching of Jesus that Mary read for all of us earlier in Matthew, the disciples of John the Baptist came to him saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast often? Why do we practice this fasting thing, but your disciples do not fast? Why is that, Jesus? Why aren't you practicing the old-time religion? Jesus, isn't it good enough for you?" Clearly responding to the challenges of the gatekeepers of old-time religion who had this exclusive club of chosen people, Jesus says, new wine is not put into old wineskins, but new wine is put into fresh wineskins. In other words, you can't take the love of God that is revealed in Jesus and put it back into some of the ancient cultural viewpoints of the world. Later in Matthew, Jesus rebuked the religious leaders of his day for clinging to old-time religion. "But woe to you," he said, "scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you lock people out of the kingdom of heaven." You lock people out of the kingdom of heaven. For you do not go in yourselves. And when others are going in, you stop them with your laws, with your procedures, with your judgments, with your old-time religion, using the old way of thinking to judge and keep away the very people God desires a relationship with. Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and of the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup, so that the outside may also become clean. You see, just practicing old-time piety and never changing what's really happening on the inside, your relationship with God through Jesus Christ, is like cleaning the outside of the cup, but never cleaning the inside of it. Now, I'm a coffee drinker. Drink coffee every morning in a cup. And there are lots of mornings when I just rinse out the cup and I reuse it over and over again. But I at least rinse out the inside of the cup. This is an image of a cup never rinsed. And you're drinking coffee or tea or hot chocolate or whatever it is you like, and never washing the inside. The outside of the cup is beautiful. It shines. But the inside of the cup is forming on the bottom that gooey, dark, awful smelling stuff. If we, as human beings and as followers of Jesus Christ, grow in our faith and our understanding, then our worldview, the way that we see the world, changes as we learn about our common humanity and the world that God has created. We're not stuck back in an old worldview. We're not stuck with just the natures of old-time religion. About a week ago, a tornado tore through Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and damaged many homes and businesses and much of the community, including the parsonage of Central Christian Church, as I've shared earlier. And then just Friday, a meteorite exploded in the atmosphere over Russia, injuring more than 1,000 people. Maybe you remember these. Old-time religion would proclaim those as acts of God. Acts of God. Your insurance company would also go along with that, by the way, as acts of God. Because old-time religion believes that tornadoes are created by God to somehow test humanity or punish humanity. Old-time religion believes that meteorites that crash into the earth are a sign of Armageddon, and that the end times are about to happen and are upon us. Well, now I can't promise that they're not today. But I can tell you that Galileo would have disagreed with that. Galileo would have said this is part of living in a living universe where asteroids and space junk and particles from dissolving planets and suns and solar systems travel through the universe at high rates of speed, some 33,000 miles per hour. And when they enter the Earth's atmosphere and they encounter the friction that is there because of all of the resistance that happens, they heat up. And when they heat up, they explode into tiny fragments. or in bigger fragments like the hole that was found in the ice of a lake in northern Russia. Tom Skilling from WGN would disagree with old-time religion that proclaims that the tornado that went through Hattiesburg, Mississippi, was caused by God, was an act of God. Tom would tell you that strong storms that can produce tornadoes are prevalent in the South in the month of February. That because of the drastic changes in hot and cold air and currents coming off of the ocean, that when all of those things meet, violent, turbulent storms can be produced. Like the one that hit Tuscaloosa, Alabama, just a couple years ago. Old-time religion had no insight, or at least not much insight, into the workings of the world. The people who witnessed their love of God and their discipleship of Jesus through the biblical story did not really understand the miracles of life as much as we do, and there are still miracles we still don't understand. And yet, because we were gifted by God with intelligence, because we were gifted by God with a brain that works, because we were gifted by God with the ability to share our stories one with another and our experiences, we've grown in our understanding of how the world works. We've grown in our understanding what it means to live in peace and harmony with one another, male and female, different colors and ethnic origins. Old-time religion didn't have those insights, didn't understand the workings of a living planet. Remember, everyone in the Bible thought the earth was flat. Everyone in the Bible thought you could fall off the end of the earth. Because that was their perception of the world they lived in. They had no idea about galaxies and supernovas and black holes. What they knew was that when they were on the ocean in their tiny little boats that they had built, it was dangerous and it was chaotic. And when you couldn't see land on the other side, you just didn't know what was there. And because Galileo hadn't invented the telescope yet, they couldn't even look out to see. And so they lived in a world of fear. A world of fear. You never knew when the next warring tribe was going to show up at your doorstep. You never knew when hailfire was going to rain down from the sky like meteorites crashing into the earth. And so when those things happened, you had to try to explain it somehow. The gods or God must be angry at us. Because God has opened the portents of the heavens, the windows of the heavens, and rained fire on us on Friday. In a big, big way. God has swirled the chaotic winds of the universe and brought destruction upon us. I guarantee you that's being preached this day from pulpits all across this land. That God is the author of destruction, that God is the author of suffering, that God is the one who has done this to us. And this is why, and there will be a list. And my name's probably on it somewhere. Old-time religion just didn't have the insight into the world that we have gained. So God is not, my friends, the cause of catastrophe in the world. God doesn't cause cancer to destroy a body. Exposure to cancer-causing elements like radiation, ultraviolet light, toxins in our water, our soil, and our air, smoking cigarettes and partaking of other drugs, chemical exposures, and the weapons of war cause cancer in our bodies. car accidents to happen either that injure and kill people. Did you know that nearly half of all the accidents that happened in Kankakee County this past year, 2012, was one of the deadliest years in Kankakee County history for accidents? That nearly half of those accidents are due to one simple fact: speed. Driving too fast for conditions. Number one cause of accidents in Kankakee County. Now, I don't believe that God makes you step on the accelerator any faster. But as human beings in a rush in life, we do that kind of stuff. And when we do that and we think we're in control of everything, and we get to the point where we lose control, we make mistakes and accidents happen and lives are destroyed. God doesn't cause car wrecks and other disasters. God doesn't lead mentally ill persons to act out in violent ways, killing innocent children and adults. But a lack of understanding and care for mental health patients in our midst, a lack of compassion, a lack of work on abusive behaviors in our families and in our communities, a lack of understanding of our human tendency to be vengeful, and complete despair for some folks lead people to act out in ways undescribable by words. God does not murder children. No, my friends, the good news today is that while some of the old-time religion that sought to understand their world needs to be discarded and is unhealthy, there is some old-time religion that we can rely on. That God is the source of all life, abundant life. That God is the author of compassion and caring and kindness. That God is the source of wisdom and thoughtfulness, the source of all healing and the source of hope. God is not the author of suffering. And yes, there are some old religious beliefs that are unhealthy and need to be discarded. Even Jesus understood that. And Jesus calls us to understand this God. Jesus is the one who stopped the stoning of the woman caught in adultery. Because Jesus understood life and compassion and caring and kindness and healing and hope. And God was the source and author of it all. Jesus was the one who reached out to the blind man by the pool and healed him, who was questioned about whether it was the blind man's sin or his parents' sin that had caused his blindness, and Jesus healed and did not judge. Jesus cared and offered compassion. You know, there are still questions that remain when we believe that God is the source of all of these things. We still have questions. We have questions about, well, then, why do bad things happen to good people, for instance? Why do bad things happen to good people? I can testify to you today out of my faith, my understanding, and not just mine, but out of the church, out of our understanding of the world, that it's not because God wants to test good people. It's not because of that. It may just be because you live in this chaotic and beautiful mess where accidents happen, where our greed for products pollutes our lands and diseases happen, where our lust for power creates wars and tragedy takes place, where our vulnerability as human beings means that, yes, there are things floating around in space bigger than us. But in the midst of all of that, we have a God. We have a Savior. We have a gift of a Holy Spirit that promises to be the source of compassion. So that when the tornado is racing through Hattiesburg and the people are racing to go help, God's compassion shows up in the midst of that tragedy. Because somebody cared enough about another human being to help. When a meteorite shower rains down on Russia, the world is concerned not only for themselves, is one going to come here? But for the people. The thousands who were injured by shards of glass and other things. And they reach out to help. Just as we reach out every time someone is hurt somewhere. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to live with a little ambiguity. To doubt some things, to question some things. Good Christians doubt and question and don't have all the answers. It doesn't mean you're less faithful if you just can't say this is exactly why it happened and how it happened and what the result is. It's called faith. It's called trusting in God's goodness. And the God who is the author of life in the midst of this mess. Which is why when we think we know all the answers and we're ready to proclaim judgment on someone else, we should consider Jesus and the religious know-it-alls of his day. We should consider Jesus and the religious know-it-alls of his day. Friends, we are on a faith quest. On a journey, we're beginning it this Lent to place our trust in the goodness of God. Not for perfect answers, but for honest ones, real ones. When we look out around the world, we can say, that makes sense to me. That I can trust this day. I hope your Lenten journey is filled with God's grace as you grow in your faith and your understanding on this faith quest that we've embarked upon today. Amen.